Deep in the Reads here, and today I am looking at Black Against Empire, The History and Politics of the Black Panther Party by Joshua Bloom and Waldo E. Martin Jr. Both authors have written a lot about activism and racial politics and socio-political stuff like that for a while, and this is their first collaborative book in which they kind of take a nuanced and sober look at the Black Panther Party. They talk about, in the introduction, how the Black Panther Party is rarely written about in full historical books like this, and what books that there are have been sensationalized or, they're over-dramatized in one way or the other. And this book seeks to neither villainize or romanticize the party and just kind of go through the early history of it. I've been interested in reading civil rights stuff for a long time now, but I've been kind of stuck with the very basic, Martin Luther King related things. This is my first book on the Black Panthers, and I found it to be a really good introduction to the subject. The book sets the stage for the Black Panther parties by talking about the civil rights movement and how various factors led to activists becoming increasingly radical as things went along. It talks about the end of legal segregation in 1965 and how many activists quickly became disillusioned as they looked around and realized that although they were technically legally equal, they were facing institutional racism at many levels of society, being shut out of certain jobs or certain education opportunities, or not getting fair housing, being harassed and brutalized by the police, and being targeted for hate crimes in which the people that perpetrate those crimes were, set free of all charges, that kind of thing. So black people really were needing a voice, were needing a way to find power, like institutional power, economic power, black power, and that's where the Black Panther Party comes in. And in the next few years, just very rapidly, the Black Panther Party becomes the vanguard for black activism in the United States, and it's just a thrill to see that evolution happen. So the Black Panther Party, the one that we're all familiar with, was originally called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, formed by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton. It was originally specifically for bearing arms to make cops and racists think twice about targeting black people. What they would do is they would follow cops around, they would take notes, observe them, document what they were doing, and they would very clearly be displaying guns while they were doing it. And if the cops tried to stop them, Huey Newton would be very quick to pull out the law book and read to them, oh yeah, everything we're doing is above board and it's totally legal, you can't touch us. But that didn't prevent cops from trying. So there's a part in the book where there's a lot of really gripping confrontations between the Black Panthers and the police. And one of my favorite is this one where they get pulled over by a cop who sees them with their guns, and he pulls them over in front of a university track field in a residential neighborhood. He goes up to arrest them, and he reaches into the car to pull the guns out of their hands. So I'll just read you that segment here. Newton leapt out of the car and jacked a round of ammunition into the chamber. He shouted, "Now who in the hell do you think you are, you big redneck bastard, you rotten fascist swine, you bigoted racist? You come into my car trying to brutalize me and take my property away from me? Go for your gun and you're a dead pig." The officer lifted his hands away from his gun while Seale and Hutton jumped out of the passenger side of the car. People streamed out of their houses. More students streamed out of Merritt. Seale and Newton beckoned people to come out and observe the police. A sizable crowd soon coalesced. Seale called the police racists, dogs, pigs. He explained to the crowd that the police were occupying the community like a foreign troop that occupies territory, and that black people are tired of it. Several more police cars arrived, with an officer walking up to Newton and demanding, "Let me see that weapon." Newton said, "Let you see my weapon? You haven't placed me under arrest." The officer insisted. Newton refused. "Ain't you ever heard of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States? Don't you know you don't remove nobody's property without due process of law? What's the matter with you? You're supposed to be enforcing the law, and here you are ready to violate my constitutional rights. You can't see my gun. You can't have my gun. The only way you're going to get it is to try to take it." The police bring backup, and eventually the lieutenant comes over and he's just like, yeah, these guys are fine. You can't really do anything to them. I think he writes them a fine for not having their license plate attached properly or something like that, but you get it. it's just amazing the way that they, not only do they stand up, but they work the crowd. They're talking to them like, hey, check out what these cops are doing. We're standing up to them, and we're getting away with it. And you can too, you know? So no wonder they quickly caught attention. I also like the way that the book illustrated the Black Panthers' politics and their methods and how they differed from other black activist organizations. It also does a lot to dispel a lot of the sort of mythology and the fear-mongering that happens around the Black Panther Party. For example, they may be intimidating, but they were far from the anti-white racists that the media made them out to be, and the authors take great pains to illustrate that. They actually are staunchly anti-separatist, and they have a falling out with fellow activist Stokely Carmichael over the issue at one point. And it's interesting to see the response from governments throughout the book. That's the other aspect of this book that's really interesting. Most notable for me was, so you know, obviously gun rights are a very contentious issue in the United States. Like, no matter what tragedy comes from them, no gun restrictions are ever passed. But it took like no time at all. Once the Black Panthers came to public attention, everyone frickin' scrambled to make it illegal to openly bear arms in the state of California. The Mulford Act was passed in 1967, the same year that the Black Panthers formed, and yeah, it makes you suspicious, doesn't it? Like, the black activists suddenly take up arms, and then everyone's just like, we gotta do something about these guns. The new laws prohibiting open carry in the state of California forced the Black Panthers into broadening their activism, and they started instituting community programs, and this ended up being one of my favorite parts of the book, where they're talking about going into poor neighborhoods and setting up like free breakfast programs for children, setting up basic medical centers, doing educational programs where they teach about like human rights and racial identity and class consciousness and things like that, as well as basic things like reading and writing. Even there though, it's really gross to see the police crackdowns and stuff like that, because like, they spread lies about how, oh, the food is poisoned, don't take your kids there, they're indoctrinating them to be racists, and they will storm, so sometimes the police will storm these free breakfast programs while the children are there, smash things, wave their guns around, and yell like, we're looking for somebody, or you're hiding contraband, and like, it's really grotesque to see some of the police crackdowns in this, and some of them come to a head in absolutely, like, catastrophic ways. Like, there's a siege on a Black Panther office in LA, and they are literally dropping dynamite charges onto the roof from a helicopter. And of course there's a famous murder of Fred Hampton, where they got somebody to drug him, and then they burst in the middle of the night, shot him in the back of the head while he was still sleeping. It's wild to read. So, given the intense government repression that you see throughout the book, it's clear to see why the Black Panther Party and the Black Power movement in general often conceptualized their communities as being occupied territory by the colonialist, imperialist United States government. Although the book does a great job in sort of showing why they believe the things they did and justifying a lot of them, it also does not like beat around the bush when it comes to criticizing certain aspects of their ideology. The main one being that they often view things in a very simplistic kind of way, where you're either with us or you're against us. They would often denounce fellow activists in their newspaper by name. They would call them things like counter-revolutionaries or accommodationists. The other thing is that there's a lot of latent misogyny sort of ingrained in the party. They have to deal with that over the course of the book. They come to grips with the chauvinism in the party, and they start pushing women to the forefront more as the book goes on. You see Elaine Brown takes over the party at one point. But all these issues and the expansion of the party, where they're not quite able to keep everybody in line, leads to a lot of fracturing, and the book does a really good job in sort of illustrating that fracture and why the party eventually, broke apart. So like I said, it's a very good introduction to the Black Panthers. The only problem is, being an introduction, it has the issue that a lot of introductory texts tend to have, which is there are significant blind spots, in my opinion, certain things that are glossed over that I don't think should be. Some details that are glossed over throughout the book are the details of Huey Newton's arrest for murder, the assault details of the ice cream theft by Fred Hampton, the Maoism of the party, that was a big one. I understand that they were Marxists, but why Mao specifically? And how much did they know about what was going on in China? There were intense authoritarian repressions going on. And the other one is, of course, I would have liked to see more of Elaine Brown's period as head of the Black Panther Party. The last thing to mention about the level of detail in Black Against Empire is the fact that it only covers about the first 5 years of the Black Panther Party's history. And they lasted from 67 to 82, so it feels a little bit weird when we're only in 72 and it's just like, okay, bye! But I also understand that all of the exciting stuff, all of the big events happened very concentrated in that early period. I still would have liked to see a little bit more. And the other issue that I just want to mention is that the book has a mixed chronology. It's fairly linear up until the arrest of Huey Newton, but after that it kind of goes more by subject than by timeline. And that's fine for a lot of history books, and even here, a lot of the time I understand why they made that choice. But there are other points where I really think it's unnecessary to mix up the chronology like they do, so that's just something to kind of be wary of if you go into it. Overall though, although I didn't get everything that I wanted out of this book, I still really liked it. I thought it was really informative. I thought it was an important book to read. I would rate it a 7.5 out of 10. If you're interested in civil rights or black activism or any of the modern day issues that we're still grappling with in terms of racial equality and finding the best way to do that, I would definitely give this a look, especially since it sort of goes off the beaten path. It's not Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. It's something that is, like the authors point out, very much neglected in the civil rights history. So yeah, that'll be that for this review. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked it. Leave a comment, subscribe, have a good time, read a good book. This is a good book. Read it. Check it out. Bye.